Warren Sharp says he kind of he listed like the NFL, the percentage of drives that score points when they were losing in the second half. Top of that list are your Cincinnati Bengals, Kansas City Chiefs. They're really good at scoring. If they're down in the second half, they're the top two in the NFL. And the 49ers are towards the bottom. They're tied with Pittsburgh all the way at the bottom. The only teams worse were like the Jets, Chicago, Arizona, Denver, Philly, Rams, and Tennessee. Philly was weird. Philly's like the outlier.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. That is interesting. That is not a fluke. I feel like all those teams are built to score early, take a lead, and then win with their D lines. I think they're built that way. That's very interesting. Yeah.
You would think that Philly wouldn't be on this list because they do have Jalen Hurts. But maybe there's a little bit of maybe the Jalen Hurts story isn't what we think it is. Maybe it's
possible.
It's based around this roster and their ability to score quickly.
They have the best offensive line in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, they're always winning. When they're winning, they're really tough to come back against, as the Niners saw, because now you're trying to drop back against that D line. I would ask, though, like, how often was Philly even trailing in the second half? Really?
That's a good point.
Did that even happen last year? It may have happened. I mean, it might have happened a little bit, but they barely lost. Probably the same thing with the Niners. But I think what's so important about this is if you're going to be a team that beats the Chiefs, the one team that's really had some success against the Chiefs in the playoffs is Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And both those are the teams that can score the quickest from any point in the game. You're down 3 touchdowns, you're down 10 points. Who cares? I can score really fast. Chiefs did it against the Eagles. They did it against the Niners. They were down 10 in the second half of both of those games. And they're like, meanwhile, if Kyle's down like 3 points in the second half,
yes. Yeah, I mean, and then third on the list was the Bills. So if you look at these top 3 teams, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Buffalo Bills, what do they have in common? Elite quarterbacks. Elite quarterbacks, right?
Yep.
And so it shows you that those 3 teams, those 3 quarterbacks, when the chips are down and they need to come back and win the game, that elite quarterback comes into play.
Yeah. And that's why you need one, because there are teams in the league that have them, that also have good rosters. Well, meanwhile, the Niners are trying to talk themselves into, the last pick in the draft being good enough for them. And while he might be to a point, they're never going to have this type of a quick strike offense in the second half, down points against good defenses that they need.
And that's been the argument that people like you and I have been making for a while now. At least I know I have, man. I've seen you've been making it as well. It's just without, like, when you go to the playoffs and you play these really good teams, you can't do the things that you did in the regular season versus these mediocre teams. You have to be able to fight your way back, come back, score when you're down. And, we saw the 49ers try to do it with Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl, and they were unable to. And so this is the thing that's been missing from the 49ers: offensive line, elite quarterback play. This is what's been missing, and this is what scares me about going into this season as well, to be honest.
And, like, it's how the Niners are built. It's not – I don't think it's something they can necessarily overcome. It's just something that they live with. The right center, right guard, right tackle are all there for what they do as run blockers. They don't really value pass protection. The Niners aren't super invested in quarterback. They are a team that's built to get a lead, run the ball. Like, their offense, no matter how much talent they put on their offense, because of their offensive line, their quarterback, their offense is complementary. It's all about chewing up the clock.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding? The best offenses in the league aren't about chewing up the clock. If you have McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, and all these, you should be able to just say, it doesn't matter how much time we have the ball. We're going to score 40 this week. We're just going to score 40 and you're going to lose. That's the kind of stuff Kansas City can do. The Niners should be able to do it, but because of their O-line and quarterback play, their offense is secondary. Crazy.
Particularly the drop back passing game, right? Like, in these situations when you're down, you have to be able to drop back and pass, right? And if you don't have the offensive line to protect the quarterback, or the quarterback that's able to do that, or a coach or an offense in general that's used to doing it, that's one of the things. Like, I know I'm no Jimmy Garoppolo defender, but if you never ask a quarterback to do something until the most important moment of his career in the Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we need to score quickly. It's not really fair to Jimmy Garoppolo, if I'm being honest, right? This is why I say it's so important that the 49ers incorporate this throughout the season. So it's part of their offense. So they're all used to doing it. The receivers, tight ends, the offensive line, and particularly the quarterback. It has to be, 2 to 4 times a game. They got to take deep shots. They got to be able to just take a drop back pass, right? They don't really do that.
And what's crazy is it's never been easier to drop back and pass in the NFL. All the rules benefit the offense. I mean, yeah, D-lines are really good, but you can't touch the quarterback. You can't touch the wide receivers. You can't breathe on them.
Yeah.
You should be able to drop back and pass, but Kyle is sort of stuck in his dad's scheme, which was really built in the 90s during an era with totally different rules where a run game could really protect your quarterback from getting blown up. Like Steve Young got blown up. A big reason Steve Young took so many hits is the Niners didn't have consistent running back play in the mid-90s after Ricky Waters. A lot has changed since then.
Yeah.
And I feel like Kyle, even though he's looked at as being cutting edge, like the principles of his offense are kind of conservative. Like we run the ball.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, your commitment to running the ball, which is super noble, puts your quarterback in peril late in the season when you fall behind and have to throw. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing is we look at, like, I bring this stat up all the time, but the last 4 or 5 Super Bowl winners had over 4,000 yards passing during the season, 40-plus touchdown passes during the season, right? So they're used to doing it throughout the season. They're able to do it throughout the season, and good things happen when you attack deep down the sidelines. It either goes out of bounds most of the time, or you connect, which is great, or it's a pass interference, and you get 40, 50 yards without doing anything.
And even if you don't even throw it, but they know that you can do it and they respect it, then you back off the defense. You create space.
Yeah.
And like with the playmakers the Niners have, the guys who can get yards after the catch, if you had a quarterback who could, and an offensive line, it's because it's not just the quarterback, it's the offensive line too, that could actually threaten defenses like every blade of grass, then you wouldn't need Kyle Shanahan and his genius. They'd just be scoring a bunch of points because you can't defend all of that. But you can because the ball comes out quick and the quarterback doesn't get the ball on the field. So it's like I call it a tennis court. Yeah. The Niners play offense on a tennis court.
Well,
they do.
I mean, people got mad at me for saying Brock Purdy was dink and dunk. And it's really just Kyle Shanahan's offense is dink and dunk. And I don't know if it's because of Brock Purdy necessarily as much as it is just the way that he designs his offense. It's all dink and dunk. Now, maybe if you had a quarterback that could extend.
That's what John Gruden was like.
Right.
That's what John Gruden was like. And to me, that's like a hallmark of a micromanager. Like, I don't trust you to throw the ball more than 5 yards. Yeah. Like, I'm going to give you stuff that I could do, essentially. Don't mess it up. That's the kind of the attitude that Gruden had back in the day, and I think Kyle has. Like, man, it's not that hard. Don't mess it up. It's like, thanks for the vote of confidence, coach. And thanks for being such a micromanager and telling me where to throw and how to throw and what to think and how to feel and all that.
But other than that, I love it. Kyle started in your position as quality control for our Buccaneers, John Gruden. So maybe a little bit of that wore off on him.
Yeah, a lot of people compare Kyle to his dad, but really, I mean, the guys who groomed him in the NFL, that's a strange word to use, but yeah, they groomed him. John Gruden, Gary Kubiak, those two.
Yeah.
What quarterbacks did they ever develop? Rich Gannon, Matt Shaw, like those kind of guys. And that's the kind of guys that Kyle likes. Brian Greasy. Yeah. You know, the backups that the rest of the league didn't appreciate. Like, sweet. I mean, there's a place for those guys, but they're not elite.
What's funny about Kyle is, like, you know, he's tied to Chris Sims. That was I think that was the second quarterback he worked with. The first quarterback he ever worked with was Brian Greasy. So it's funny. That's where those ties come from way back in the day. Yeah.
Papa Phil says Harbaugh always put quarterback and O-line first. Good head coaches do.
I mean, it's the most important 2 positions.
I would agree. Yeah. Mui says, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm going to go with Mui. Says, you never know what's going to happen in any season, but I really don't know what's going to happen this season because of the quarterback, loss of talent, new DC. Yeah, tougher schedule too. But they have McCaffrey. I mean, they're such a good team.
Yeah.
You could say on paper they should be expected to win the Super Bowl. You could say that if you believe in Brock, if you believe in McKivitz.